Once all teams assigned to your room have conducted their interviews and the judges have completed their oral critique, it will be time for the judges to independently rank the team based on which team you thought did the best, second best, and if you have 3 teams, third best. The clients are asked to be as consistent with each team as the circumstances permit to assist you in this important function. Please do not begin your discussions about the team's performances until all teams have finished competing. Each judge may consult and deliberate with the other judges in your room, but they need not agree on the ranking. The judges may also consult with the client to get his or her perspective, but that is entirely up to each judging panel, who should inform the client if in fact they would like to obtain from him or her any input. But the clients, of course, do not complete a scoring sheet. Please do not, however, speak to the client until after you have heard all 3 teams that are scheduled to compete in your room. While the judges may discuss the team's performances, each judge will complete his or her own score sheet independently. The judges should have received a score sheet, and I ask you to follow along with me as I go through it. The important thing is to remember that every team that you have observed must be ranked. If you have observed 3 teams, then every blank on that form must be filled in. Each judge should list by team letter the team that he or she believes did the best. That team automatically gets 1 point. The team believed to be second best gets 2 points. It is ranked second. And if you observed 3 teams, the third place team will receive 3 points. Please print your name legibly, sign the score sheet, and include a phone number, preferably a cell phone number, so that someone can reach you if there is a question about your score sheet. The host of the competition will inform you where to return your score sheet as well as where to return your written evaluations. The written instructions for the judges contain more information. Let me now turn my attention to important information for the clients, but I will have a few final instructions for judges, so judges, please stay tuned. Clients, you've probably gathered some idea of your role from what we've discussed already. You should have already received your client profile. You should know your facts well enough that you can become this fictional client. Please take time before your first interview to review your role and to be ready for your close-up. Please remember that only you and the judges have been provided the full details, and this information must remain confidential until the competition is completed. It is very important that you become thoroughly familiar with your role. Within the framework of the client profile, however, it is entirely up to you as to how you will play this particular client. In other words, here is a chance for you to let the disappointed actor in you come out. You should be realistic, however. Please avoid hamming it up. It is crucial that you act your role in the same manner with each of the teams. Do not act differently with different teams because it will certainly complicate the judging process. If you do one thing for the first team, then you must do the same thing for other teams that interview you later, even if it varies from the information contained in your profile. If you make up certain facts for the first team, use those same facts for later teams. If you make a mistake about the facts with the first team, you should not try to correct those mistakes for later teams. Likewise, you should be as cooperative or uncooperative with later teams as you are with the first team. Please do not review your profile between interviews because it will likely result in your changing how you play the role for those interviews that come afterwards. On the other hand, you must play your role consistent with what is asked of you by the competitors. If one team asks questions very much different from what other teams ask, you must respond to the agenda set by the students. Therefore, Each interview may in fact be different, but that difference should be a product of the performance of the competitors rather than anything that you have done. Be sure to guard against the natural tendency to volunteer more information as you become more familiar with the role and the questions become more predictable. During the interview, do not simply recite the facts when the attorneys ask you what happened. Rather, allow the competitors to ask of you what they want to know. Allow them to direct the interview. However, do recognize that it is common for people to answer a question different from the one that was asked, or to have difficulty at times staying with one train of thought, and to sometimes digress into matters that are legally irrelevant but that are nonetheless important to them. Clients, you are almost certain to get questions for which the information is not provided. Names and addresses are just a couple of the examples of information not provided that you may be asked. Please feel free to make up facts not provided in your client profile. However, please try to ensure that the facts that you add are consistent with the facts in your profile. And be sure to provide those same facts in subsequent interviews if asked by later competitors. Finally, as you play the role, take into consideration how you might react under similar circumstances if you were asked the questions that the competitors ask you. If the attorneys use legalese, you are free to ask for an explanation. In addition, try to affect the demeanor one would expect of a client with the problem described in your client profile. In short, familiarity with the client role, as well as acting as a layperson, are the keys to being a good client. After you have been shown from the room, clients, let me emphasize that you may not sit in on the post-interview consultation or the judge's oral evaluations of the teams that interview you, because doing so would likely result in your changing how you play the role. Use the time between interviews to get a drink or something to eat or to use the bathroom, but please don't stray too far so that you will be available for the next interview when your judges are ready to begin. Once you have completed your last interview, please do not leave until the judges have released you. They may want to hear from you about what you thought of the teams that interviewed you. Please give your judges a chance to speak to you about your own observations if the judges want that input from you. Clients, please avoid all interaction with any of the teams until after you have finished your last interview. Of course, you should not discuss your confidential client profile with anyone, but we encourage you to also avoid innocent chit-chat so that no team will have an unfair advantage of beginning to establish rapport with you before the interview begins, as well as to avoid any appearances of impropriety. There are just a few more things that I want to address with both clients and judges. First of all, cell phones. If you have a cell phone, please take the time to turn it off. The competitors may arrange their interview room as they wish unless the furniture is not movable or the host school has asked that they not do so. This should not delay the start of your interview. Finally, with respect to time, please do everything possible to stay on time. The competitors have a tight schedule so that if one room runs late, there will be a domino effect that will cause other rooms to run late as well. One of the most important things that I want to end with is to remind you about anonymity. The competition rules require that you do not know the identity of the teams that you are judging. The teams, therefore, will be designated as Team A, Team B, etc. Please do not ask the teams to identify themselves by school or by state. In fact, each team has been instructed to not mention its home state or their school by name. Now you will have a chance to ask your host administrator any questions that you have. Again, thank you. We appreciate your willingness to help with this competition.